All right, we are ready to get started again. Just a quick reminder to everybody who is here in the Zoom with us to select your preferred listening language between English and Spanish. The Vimeo stream that folks are tuning in on, they're just going to hear English. And also a quick reminder to speak slowly, both presenters and evaluators, when you ask your questions so that our interpreters can keep up. But with that, I will turn it over to Rosario Alvarez and Pro Natura Noreste to get us started.
Hola, buenos días. My name is Rosario Alvarez, and I'm the Executive Director of Pro Natura Noreste. We're a NGO based out of Monterrey, Mexico, that we've been working for 25 years in conservation programs and projects in the northeast part of the country. Today, I will present the project that we implemented with resources from Salazar Center and the Peregrine Accelerator. It's a project around governance and the environment in the Rio Bravo, Rio Grande region. It's a kind of sui generis project because it's around policy and governance is not specific on the ground. And we are very grateful because resources to participate on policy and governance issues are not very, very easy to be received. So we are extremely grateful for this seed funding of $10,000 that we received. So I'm going to present for the following 20 minutes. I'm going to start with just kind of a background and history of the project that we are implementing, and then talk about what we have done in this past 6 months, and at the end, what we would like to do in the future. So let me start with, my God, now I can't do it. There we go. So this is the region of Rio Bravo, Rio Grande. It's 3,000 kilometers that start up in the state of Colorado and go down to the border between the U.S. and Mexico in Bronzeville and Matamoros. This is waters that have irrigated crops ever since before the Spanish came and conquered the Americas. It's irrigating around 850 hectares on both countries. Also, Rio Bravo, Rio Grande is supporting the production of hydroelectric energy on both of our countries. And it's been used, most of its water has been used for irrigation and also for cities on both countries. Unfortunately, right now, only about 20% of the water of the Rio Bravo reaches the Gulf of Mexico. And mostly, as I said, due to irrigation and the hydration of important cities on both of our countries. So I'm just 1 minute of history. This is a very, very important region for both of our countries. Even before the Spanish came here, these are nations like the Coahuiltecos and Caracaguas who inhabited this region. The first time the Rio Grande was placed in a map was in 1519 by Alonso Alvarez de Pineda, who was trying to find a passage to the west. When the Spanish came here, this became a colony called La Nueva Santander, the New Santander. And one of the first things that the missionaries did is introduce the cattle. And they started giving some titles to landowners, to individuals, and it became a very important cattle region in the beginning of the La Conquista. It's been also a very, very unique region for both of our countries. In 1810, when Mexico obtained its independence from Spain, all the border states were born. And this region right there on the screen called the Nueces Strip was basically one of the reasons of the big war that we had between Mexico and the United States. Mexico included the border up in the Nueces River, and the U.S. defined the border down in Rio Grande. So it was a region of a lot of differences between our countries. There was I think the most dramatic event of our countries at the war, the Mexican War, as they call it in the US, or the invasion of the United States, depending on which country you are, the name of the war and the name of the river. All this war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo that basically defined this region as part of the United States, together with several other states that became part of the United States: California, Arizona, Nuevo Mexico, Colorado. And one interesting thing is that the titles that the Mexicans had in that region were respected. So it was kind of a very interesting part of the negotiations, because most of the people who lived there stayed there with nationality and titles of the land as they had it before the war. So that started after years of this war, and having now a river as the border for Mexico and the United States. In 1944, both of our countries established this water treaty that establishes that we, Mexico, will allocate water to the United States from the Rio Bravo, Rio Grande, and the US will allocate water for Mexico from the Colorado River. And it specifies accountings every year, but it makes a cycle of 5 years when these allocations need to be completed. Also establishes that if we have an extraordinary drought, we could replenish in the next following cycle, never clearly saying what an extraordinary drought means, but this is what the treaty says. And the treaty has basically, here I'm not going to go into detail, but it's, I would say, very good for Mexico, because the US through the Colorado allocates around 1.5 million acre foot of water, and us through the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo basin, we allocate something around 400,000, 410,000 acre feet of water. Through this is the treaty that we have, and this is a treaty that's been working since 1944. Also, 1944, this International Commission of Water between Mexico and the United States came to be, and it's a very important treaty, very important commission that basically has resolved most of our problems in the border since 1944. And each country has a special commissioner, engineers, legal advisors, foreign aid secretaries, and it's been working relatively well since 1944. And it's been gaining more and more power in both of our countries. But there's certain shortcomings of this treaty, no? Basically that the water is overused, that we have been dividing more water we have more water users than water in the river. There's been no type of addressing climate change. There's been low or none prioritization of water for ecological purposes. There's no clarity in how and if we can use reservoirs or how many reservoirs we could put in the river. There's no guidelines on groundwater. And as I said before, there's no specific definition of what does an extreme drought mean. So there's where we come, and there's where you all come in as an opportunity. Natura is part of the Rio Grande joint venture. You can see here the list of all the participants in the Rio Grande joint venture. It's a public-private partnership of state, federal agencies in both countries, non-governmental organizations of both countries. And we believe that this can provide a very important forum so La Sila or the IBWC could meet the responsibilities they have regarding ecosystem stewardship and ecological allocations of water from the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo. We have one of the things that Sila sees in us, what I'm starting to understand, is that we provide like kind of on the ground recognition and stakeholders on the ground that they do not have. They're kind of in this international committee. And we have worked for many years, all these partners, on water allocations, ecological allocations of water in the affluents of the river. So this is what we have right now. We started with an approach to SILA in March 2022. We wrote a letter. You see a letter there. We went to we were asking for them to receive us. That happened only on October 2022, and we have been, with the resources of the Peregrine Fund, we have been able to participate on meetings with the Rio Grande joint venture, in a lot of meetings with SILA, also in both in Ciudad Juarez and in both sides of the border. The funds have supported us in doing all these negotiations and working with them. It's been much harder than we thought, because we're not, the commission basically thinks of water in the Rio just for agriculture and for towns and cities. Environment is something that it's really not in their agenda, but they know that it's something that they have to do, but they're not really, so we're not like the nice partner for them. It has been very hard. Meetings are tough. You recognize that they don't want you there, from even like from the type of coffee that they give you. So it's been kind of complicated, but we have been very steady trying to get into the goal of this Peregrine Fund was to make sure that there was a working environmental group in the minute that's going to happen in December 2023. So this is the last minute of 2020, and I'm just gonna, I highlighted there in red that they have a minute to be delivered in December 2023. And what we really wanted is that this group, the joint venture, was named as the environmental group for the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo, that has never, since 1944, established anything that had to do with the environment. So after many ups and downs and comes and goes, and writing a letter between two countries and 17 different partners, believe me, it's not something that is easy. But here I'm just gonna show some images of some of the meetings that we've been there. SILA right now, it has a very, I would say, unique part. Both commissioners on both sides of the border are women. They are both bilingual, and both of them, at least on their speeches, seems that they really are interested in having some environmental purposes on Rio Grande, Rio Bravo, okay? So this is several meetings that we've been. This is the last meeting that we were there a couple of, I would say, weeks or something ago. And finally, on this meeting, we were able to produce this document. It seems that it's a lot of time to write a letter, but believe me, policy and two nations under one so constrained resource that is the water, it's very complicated. So this is the final objectives of the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo Environmental Working Group. And this is basically what it says that we're going to be doing. I just want to focus on number 4, where they say you go and identify water and funding sources to implement all what you want. Like if water was somewhere there available for somebody. And but this is basically what they've commissioned us to do. Identify water and identify funding sources. And what we're going to be doing in the next following months is basically what this says in the bottom. Develop a document and a plan for how are we going to operate. This is, I would say, for us, a very successful project. I never thought that we could, at the end, have environmental working group for the minute. That's going to happen in December 2023. So this is the final text. There's a similar text in Spanish, but I just wrote the one in English. So this is, I would say, the end of our 6-month period with support of you and also support of all the partners in the joint venture. So what do we want to do? What do we want to do? What environmental water flow project we want to pursue with the water out there and the funding sources? So this is just a very short slide of what are ideas for the next steps. And it's about the Forgotten River. There's a piece of the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo that's been called the Forgotten River. And it's basically runs from El Paso in Ciudad Juárez, El Paso, down to Praxedis. It's about 78 kilometers of river, of a Rio Grande, Rio Bravo river that looks like this. It's a border fence and it's a sand bed. It seems that all the water's been used. We assume that it's for irrigation and for other uses, but it has or either intermittent or no flow at all. It's really sad to be standing there and see this, what's supposed to be the most important river for our both of our countries, look like this, a fence and a sand bed. So what we want to do is, it's analyze the behavior of the surface water historically on the past 38 years, see what are the relationships between the agriculture water withdrawals and the flow or no flow in this part of the river, and come out with certain recommendations to recover some of the ecological flows on the Forgotten River. We have to be very careful because there's a very, very precise that they have talked to us every single meeting, the perspective of SILA that any kind of project, any kind of environmental measures that we want to pursue has not affect any water extractions that are currently on force. So we cannot try to reduce what they're already allocated on water. So the ideas that we've been talking, Antonio, us, and the people from the joint venture is figuring out, trying to use the water that comes from the city. There's no treatment on the water that comes from the city. And we would try to look to see if the treatment of the water, we could work with the city of Juárez to put a water treatment plant and allocate some of that water for the Rio Bravo on this Forgotten River. That's the idea that we have. It's just in our heads and in our hearts right now, but that is what we would like to do. And so that is the and I just want to take one last minute of our time to give you an extra bonus of the Peregrine Accelerator that happened as Lorenzo Rosenzweig, another of the presenters today, and Bat Conservation, other presenters, happened thanks to American Airlines that basically delayed our last flight and when we were coming for Ghost Ranch. So we were talking, we had a lot of time, plane was delayed. So we started talking about something that we could do. And the something that we could do became a wonderful project that's now on place. And it's a bat-friendly agave nursery in Parque Nacional Cumbres de Monterrey, where we're going to be putting this nursery for specific type of bat-friendly agaves that will help us reforest places that have been burnt past year and this in 2021 and 2022 that we had terrible forest fires. So we already now have $46,000 from the government of Nuevo León. The partners are Terra Habitus and Bat Conservation. You're going to see their projects during today and tomorrow. But it's Terra Habitus is putting a ranch that they have around in Las Navajas. Bat Conservation is putting all the science. We went and asked for this amount of money, and a project that started in a van and a delayed flight. It happened also because of the Peregrine Fund. It's not part of this project, but I just want to give you that as a bonus of the marvelous interactions that you created on this past 6 months. And that's my project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rosario. I love that you saved a little bit of time to talk about your brainchild with the other teams. With that, you wrapped up a little bit early, so we can use all that time for questions from the group. Faye, Chadney, Zalali, Ernesto, feel free to just unmute and pipe up. We can also raise hands, whatever feels most comfortable to y'all. But Zalali, I see you came off mute, so go for it.
Yeah. Hola, Rosario. Mucho gusto de saludarte.
Hola, sí, ¿cómo estás? No sé dónde estés, pero espero que estés bien.
Sufriendo un poco. I've been up since like an ungodly hour, and everything was late today. So anyway, I am very curious as to, and I'm just gonna go straight for the question: how, like, especially in this stretch of the river, and in the context of such a sort of important basin, as you said, for the bilateral relationship between Mexico and the U.S. And also knowing that, you know, the delta of the Colorado has gotten a little bit of water. How do you define an ecological flow in sort of this context? What are your sort of like your more, what parameters are you going to use? Because, you know, especially sort of if you could draw a little bit from the experience in the delta of the Colorado, if you're familiar with it, like what happened, all of the negotiation, and that like tiny little trickle of water that sometimes connects the channel with the ocean.
So we have an advantage on this project, and that's the Colorado River, because we're kind of like 8 or 10 years after that what they started on those negotiations. We've been talking a lot through also the Peregrine Fund, that they put us in contact with very savvy people from the Colorado. So they've done several things like water right acquisitions. They've done efficiencies in some of the agricultural fields. They've done all those things. So we have the advantage of trying to learn from the things that they've done, and the mistakes that they've had, and the like pushback they've had from SILA also. So those are the type of things that we would like to see. They've been really I would even use the word aggressive with us, like no water for the environment. Don't ever think that's going to be anything. So bring new water and new funds. Basically, that's what they want. So that is the idea that we have, making sure that we could have work in the affluents, some efficiencies with agricultural fields, maybe some acquisition of water rights. Those are the things that we would like to do. We have to go a little bit slow. That's why we're proposing this with the Forgotten River, where there's untreated water from the city of Juarez, that it's basically right now just flowing parallel to the Rio Grande in some canals, and some of it used on agricultural fields with all the consequences that means have untreated water. So that is something that we believe, and we've talked a little bit what some of the experts that Peregrine Fund has put us in contact, like Rosario, mi tocaya, and we've been in this discussion that could be a possibility if there's funds like from the Nat Bank or all these funds for infrastructure on water treatment. We could start negotiations of using some of that water as an ecological flow. So if you're asking for the type of indicators, for me, it's acre feet of water in the river. Pero I think we're in a long shot to that.
Okay, so how would you, sorry, Chan, I'm sorry. Just a little bit of a follow-up question. So then would you still call it an ecological flow? Would you still use that term?
No, I would say flow, period. Pero I would love to see water in that river.
Right.
Well, really right now, I don't care where it comes from, but I think there should be water there.
Right. Okay, good. Sorry. Go ahead, Jenny.
No problem. So kind of spurred by Slally's question, I think, I'm sorry again if I say your name incorrectly, Slally. I was curious to know more, you know, in the context of a changing climate with increasing scarcity and potentially increasing demand for allocation in the river, the importance of the work that you're doing, and I think it's incredible what you've achieved so far, is incredibly elevated. And I'm wondering how you're thinking the working group is poised to or strategically thinking about natural climate solutions and the concept in terms of how you're engaging with SELA and addressing those binational issues while at the same time understanding that there's a wide range of scenarios possible for the future of this region and therefore different pressures, both political and social and economic, that environmental working group may be able to address.
So if I understand correctly your question, so there is a if you saw the names of all the organizations and partners in the joint venture, we have like very strong partners like federal agencies in both sides of the country, in both countries, I'm sorry. We have also a small NGOs that are, starting or doing small projects or pilot projects. What we believe is we would love to see a lot of things, but I think the steps that we could do with SELA right now include just demonstrating that there could be some more additional water into the river with some kind of natural-based solutions or efficiencies in agriculture or a reduction in some of the pollutants into the water. And as I mentioned, just let me be in the party. We'll figure out how to dance later, no? But just let us be in the party, because there was a lot of negotiations regarding the language of the things that we wanted to put in that small page I showed you. But I think that just looking at what Colorado River has done, I believe that, and also looking at the stress that of that river, that includes my city of Monterrey, because we have been giving water from La Amistad and Falcón because the Concho has no river, and that implies that my dams are dry. So it has a lot of implications. But I think we have very important partners on this joint venture. That's why I truly believe that we are very well positioned to maintain that working group doing great things.
Thank you.
Ernesto and then Sitlali.
Yeah. Hola, Rosario. The problem with the treaty is that it has a congenital problem because it was born with over allocation. So the root cause of all what we're seeing is that water was over allocated. And I recall very well 25 years ago when Bruce Babbitt was in Interior, we actually, the groups from the US and Mexico got together and we got the signature on a piece of paper that supposedly was going to give 10% or whatever was agreed. I recall it was 10% as ecological flow to the river, and nothing happened. And things are only getting worse every day. So how would your project bring us closer to some redefinition of allocation, or to some, there's no punishment or no penalty for those who misuse water, and there's no incentive for those who save water. So we have a totally broken system. How would your project help fix that? And what are the possibilities that you can make a change, like change the trajectory a little bit, or sufficient to make it worth our while to support you? Thank you.
Híjole, it's a difficult question, because there's things that I want to do and we all want to do, the joint venture wants to do, and then there's the reality of what we can or we could achieve. I think there's a lot of factors working in our favor, and one of them is what you mentioned, the over allocation of water. the fights that are happening among both of our countries and within our countries, the communities regarding the water in the river, the use of the water, the absolute crazy way we're using it in agriculture. So there's all of these things that are terrible. I think they kind of play in our favor because we're kind of in the tipping point of a lot of things. How, your question is how my project's going to change that? I don't want to be like over thinking that we're going to be kind of changing and saving the world. I think that what we do have is the possibility of showing that maybe with some specific actions, some additional flows could happen in the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo. That's why I mentioned the Forgotten River. But I was much more optimistic when I started. It's not that I'm pessimistic right now, but it's like trying to change somebody's religion. That's what I think that we're trying to do, and it's not easy because everybody thinks that what they think and what they're doing for many years is the right thing. So I would say that with some small examples, some specific things that we could do with some of the projects that have to do with natural-based solutions, efficiencies, and I already mentioned, we could start doing some kind of changes. Having the 10% of the river allocated for the environment would be, I think, for me, the minimum. But as you mentioned, Ernesto, it's been 25 years and that has not happened. And it's the people who in charge, even though right now that both commissioners, I think they're more environmentally open. The people who are below them, the people who are really doing the work, it's a different kind of individuals that, and it's not easy, but I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get out of this game at all. Yeah, not nobody in the joint venture will do it. Now that we're invited to the party, we're going to take over the party.
Thank you.
All right, so Lali, I saw you take your hand down and we've probably got time for one more question. So do you want to go for it, Faye?
Definitely, happy to. Thanks, Rosario, for that great presentation. And I really appreciate your optimism on everything. And I feel like that's really important when you're thinking about these really big policy opportunities. And I have a kind of a follow-up question to Ernesto's. And you touched on it a little bit, but what do you feel like are some of the ways that you and others in the environmental working group and part of the joint venture, like what are some of the tactics that you think can help to change, as you called it, the religion of the people who have been thinking about and sort of in this cyclical and in their kind of current way of thinking? What are some of the ways that you're thinking about to help change their perspective and think about and incorporate the environment in future minutes?
I think the strategy that we started using in the first 2 or 3 months or meetings was incorrect. Like telling them, let me tell you what you need to do. So they basically took us out of the meeting room. I think that the strategy has been better now, where we kind of acknowledge all the good work that that commission's been doing, all the conflicts that they've helped us solve, and just saying that, there's things happening now that haven't happened before, that include all these extreme droughts and all this climate change thing that's happening and all these things that are kind of new. So there should be some kind of open conversation about this new elements even though we know they're not new, but all these new elements that they need to consider. So I think a strategy is more like on the psychological type of things, more like than in the science type, because they're very good and respected engineers, and they're very good at allocating acre feet of water. They've been doing it for many years. So I think it's more on the kind of patting their back on the things that they're doing right, and trying to include these elements that they have not acknowledged before. And I think that's a strategy. I'm gonna be a psychologist.
All right, that is 35 minutes on the nose. Thank you so much, Rosario. Really appreciate the presentation, and thank you, evaluators, for your great questions. We're going to go into that 15-minute break, and then up next, we'll have City of San Elizario presenting.
Just logistically, I abandon this group and then I go to the other one, right?
Yeah, if you want to listen to other presentations, hop on the Vimeo stream.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Un gusto. See you all. Bye.